What do I remember about the studio?
So yeah,
well, first of all, the fans weren't here.
Right, well, before we get there, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm Paul Allen. I'm originally from Lee. I now live in North Adams. I had a very interesting career, and I was an aerospace engineer for 23 years, and then I became a teacher. And my history with Joe Pilates and Company dates back to when I was a small child. My dad had a back problem, and he was introduced to Joe to help repair that back problem, and he did. Joe helped my father out an awful lot. My father had a severe disc injury. The disc injury was kind of pushed back in place through exercises, and my father was so grateful for Joe helping him out without any surgery that he offered his service to come up and help Joe at this campus when I was probably 12 or 13 years old, and I worked with my dad at this campus mowing the lawn, doing small jobs, painting, and whatever Joe wanted done as a handy group, my father and I, until I was, I think, about 16 or maybe 17, I don't know. When did Joe pass?
67.
67. So it was probably right up until 67.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Wow. Right.
Yeah,
So when you walked in, you said the studio looks a little smaller than you remember it.
Yeah, when you're 12, 13, 14 years old, you remember buildings as being much larger than they are. And when I walked in here, I realized that 20 by 20 is really not very big, but it felt like it took us forever to paint the inside of it. Because one of the things that my dad and I did is we took everything that was off the walls, put them on the floor in a big heap in the middle of the room, and then we proceeded to paint this little studio area. And we started on the back wall, and it was white all the way around except for all of trim being red. Mm-hmm. We have a few more windows, I think.
No, it's the same windows.
Is it the same windows? Okay.
And then you painted the red trim too?
Oh yeah, I painted the red trim too. The window frames and everything was red.
So
Right.
when we were restoring the studio, we saved every piece of red trim and numbered it so we would remember where it went.
Where it went.
Yes, so
Cool.
we do have it all. We saved it all.
So what I'm going to
That's
do, I
pretty
think what I'm going to
cool.
do is I'm going to repurpose it, make frames and things like that,
Yeah.
so people can purchase a piece of Joe's studio and put it in their studio. That's one of the things that
That's
we're
nice.
talking about doing
That's
to raise
nice.
money to rebuild the bungalow.
Great.
A number of things.
The studio came out very nice. My hats are off to you guys for doing such a beautiful
Great,
work.
thank you for that.
I like the cedar wood trim around,
And it matches the original floor.
and it matches the floor. I remember the floor.
It was a vinyl cover.
Yeah, was it gray?
It was kind of, it was dark. It wasn't
It was
very
dark.
colorful.
Yeah, it was durable.
Yeah, oh yes
Oh,
it
yeah.
was.
Durable.
It took me 2.5 days to sand all that crap off of this floor.
and
So it was still there
and I'll tell you,
60 years, 70 years
There's
later.
one thing Joe wanted was durability. I mean, the stairs coming up here were pressure treated frameworks that were filled in with gravel. Yeah, gravel on the way up. So we had to stain those frameworks every year with the creosote material.
Good smelling stuff.
Oh yeah, great.
So, what was the studio like when you were in here? Because when I first bought the property, I came in and everything was just sort of piled up in the corner and just left, and there was nothing was organized at all.
It was very much of an open space. If I remember right, there was only a couple of pieces of equipment in here. Okay, he did not have as much as you have right now.
Well,
There was only a few pieces.
Well, basically, what was in here was this reformer,
Yep.
this Cadillac, that bed, that chair, and this other chair here, and some of these chairs here. This other stuff over here, I've added because what I've done now is made it into a museum and working studio.
Yeah.
Like the guillotine wasn't there, so you're right. It wasn't as crowded in the
Right.
sense of
There
equipment.
wasn't much in here. I remember the bench in here. Okay.
But what I'm trying to do is like when you come to work out now, because
Yep.
this is you work out in the, and this apparatus is probably from the 80s or 90s, not 90s. So it's 30 years old already. So it's already got a lot of patina. But so you work out on this, and you look across, and there's Joe's.
Yep.
Here, this Cadillac here, which was the Cadillac made for when they moved out of Joe's studio in the 70s, and the studio they moved into in New York had a low ceiling, so they to be able to do the exercise where your feet go up to the ceiling, they put it on the floor. Yeah. So luckily, Elaine bought this, and I bought it from her, so we could put it here. And when they work out on here, then they look across here. Look, here's Joe's.
Yep.
Right, and then there's the table there, there's a bench mat there. So I'm trying to sort of, when you work out, there's a slight mirror image. So yes, it's more crowded, but that's why because it's no longer just a studio, it's a studio and the museum.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to do, and like the shields here, there's shields back here onto the wall that I put up. There's film of Joe and his brother fighting as Roman gladiators in the full outfits on the rooftops of New York City, and they were using those shields. And there's even dings and like holes in the shield from where the sword, they were going at it. They weren't messing around because that's thick metal. And I have a sheath for one of the swords, but I don't have the sword. Too bad. That's lost or gone somewhere. Yeah. So that's sort of what we've done here to sort of make that. But what else do you remember? Like what was on the walls that you had to pile up in the center?
A lot of paintings, small. Some of them were framed, some of them were not. Some of them were just kind of stuck to the wall with like thumbtacks. But they were gifts that were given to Joe and Clara. Painted, from what Clara told me, they were painted by people that he knew. Some of them were painted by handicapped people that had no arms. They were painted with their mouths. Okay, there was one I remember she pointed out, there was a guy painted it with his toe.
Wow.
Like, holy smokes, I mean, that's awesome.
Wow.
Okay, but I mean, it's too bad that those didn't survive.
Yeah, there's pictures, the archival stuff we have here, and there's one back there of the mat work and stuff, so we had that stuff as well, and there's one big picture that's between those two shields of him that was on the wall as well. That was there, but a lot of the other stuff was gone, and then there was also...
That was not framed. That was in here.
Right, that was against the wall.
But that wasn't framed.
Right, that wasn't one of the ones framed. And then there was also the anatomy posters, but they were sitting where all the water leaked through, so they were just totally gone. You can see a few little pieces that were left, but the rest of it was totally too bad because it was...
Shame.
Yep.
It really is.
Yeah, I know.
Trying to preserve as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we still find new information,
Yeah, all the time. There's, it's a lifetime, and he was exposed to a lot of people that he talked with. So you're a perfect example of somebody who came and worked out with him, and when you were 12 to 16, you probably never thought it. When you're at your age, somebody's going to be interviewing you about Joe Pilates.
It's like, okay,
who's this crazy guy?
Joe's gone, and it's like, okay.
Right, when was the last time before Kathy contacted you even probably thought about Joe?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, but it's great though. That's this is why we wanted to do this interview to sort of get your feedback, and when we're done in here, we're going to go and do a little tour of the property as well.